Hi, everyone. I'm so sorry. I'm not sure what just happened, but we're back. The internet went down, the router, something was going on. I'm at my mom's house, so not home. So anyway, I'm going to share this episode again. This is Grassroots Voices with Robin and Friends, where community and politics meet. I'm Robin. So I'm going to share this episode across some of the Facebook groups so we can make sure they have a chance to see this episode. So if you would just give me a moment, I'm going to start the share. It might take a minute or so, so just please bear with me. Thanks again. All right, so we'll be getting started in one moment. I got to go through everything that I went through before, sharing this with the groups. So just give me a minute or two, but we are back live and we have a wonderful episode. We'll be joined by Tara Ewald, one of the Powered by the People ambassadors, out-of-state ambassadors, that we'll be hearing about the work that they've been doing across the country. So we're going to try this again. So again, thank you for your patience. Technology, I tell you. Okay. So if you're just joining me, we had some technical difficulties. We are back. I'm going to get the show started in another minute. I'm just going to hop in from where I left off. If you want to see what I was talking about previously, then you can just look at the previous video. But I'm going to share this episode across the Facebook group. So just give me 1 minute. I again apologize for the difficulties, technical difficulties. Thanks for your patience. And here we go. Okay, now I got to figure out okay, here we go. Okay, almost there, almost there. Live, mother. Okay, so we're going to get started in 1 moment. I tell you, trying to work from not home, it's a whole thing. Okay. All right, so I'm sharing this episode across the groups. I know these people are like, what is this woman doing? So here we go again. I am determined because we have some really great information and we have a fantastic guest. So we're going to try again. And this would be the show where this would happen. Okay. All right, it couldn't be a show where it was just me, but anyway, Tara is very patient, so we're going to get her on in a second. All right, so pretty much I've shared it across most of the groups. Any other groups I missed, I'll just have to hit you all in a second. But first and foremost, I want to start with one of the most important stories in the political world right now, and that is the announcement that Beto O'Rourke is running for governor of Texas. We're so excited. I really like Beto. I think he's a very strong leader and voice, and he's doing the work that it takes to create the change that we all are looking for and to flip Texas blue. So we're going to start off with his campaign announcement video that was released yesterday.
I'm running for governor, and I want to tell you why. This past February, when the electricity grid failed, and millions of our fellow Texans were without power, which meant that the lights wouldn't turn on, the heat wouldn't run, and pretty soon their pipes froze and the water stopped flowing. They were abandoned by those who were elected to serve and look out for them. It's a symptom of a much larger problem that we have in Texas right now. Those in positions of public trust have stopped listening to, serving and paying attention to and trusting the people of Texas. And so they're not focused on the things that we really want them to do, like making sure that we have a functioning electricity grid, or that we're creating the best jobs in America right here in Texas, or that we have world-class schools, or that we make progress on the things that most of us actually agree on, like expanding Medicaid or legalizing marijuana. Instead, they're focusing on the kind of extremist policies around abortion or permitless carry, or even in our schools, that really only divide us and keep us apart and stop us from working together on the truly big things that we want to achieve for one another. It's a really small vision for such a big state, but it doesn't have to be that way. And I know that together we can get back to being big again, because I saw that in February when the electricity grid failed and those in power failed all of us. It was the people of Texas who were willing to put their differences behind them and get to work doing the job at hand, which meant helping our fellow Texans get through that crisis. We did this out of a sense of duty and responsibility to one another. Now imagine if the governor of Texas felt that same way. Well, there's something that you and I can do about that. I want you to be part of this campaign. And whether that begins today with a campaign contribution, or signing up for a volunteer shift, or just committing yourself to talking with your friends and family about how important this election is, I want you on the team. And I want to win this with you and for all the people of Texas. I'm looking forward to seeing you out there on the campaign trail. Thank you.
Yay. So I'm so excited for this because the people of Texas absolutely deserve better leadership. I had a good friend at the time who went through the whole power grid snow situation. It was very scary. And it's just really a shame that the leadership there really didn't care, about the people. So it's really great that Beto is putting himself out there again. And no matter what happens, he's going to be laying the groundwork for 2024 for Texas and helping all the down ballot races. But I'm a believer. I'm not one of those people who, doesn't take his candidacy seriously or believing that he doesn't have a shot at winning. I come from the yes, we can spirit. And people said the same thing about Florida in 2008. Same thing about Georgia, same thing about the Georgia Senate runoffs, that we couldn't win both seats. So I absolutely believe that the people of Texas will stand behind Beto and that he will get them over the hump for that big flip. But either way, we're going to continue to support all of our friends in the battleground states. So this leads me to this episode. You're going to meet Tara Ewald. She's an out-of-state ambassador for Powered by the People, which was an organization started by Beto O'Rourke. They really focus on electing leaders who represent the people of Texas. And they have an army of volunteers who can register. They have 3 million eligible but unregistered voters in the state. And they're really working hard to make sure that they turn out for the next election. So Tara is going to give us some updates on voter registration in Texas, what Powered by the People are doing. And we're just going to continue to advocate that people support voter registration in Texas. So you can go to PoweredXPeople.org to get more information on how you can help. Again, a couple of dollar donations go a long way. So we're going to go into Zoom now. Tara has been so patient. And we're going to bring her into this conversation. All right. Gosh, for a second, I thought I was in the wrong Zoom. One of those days. All right, yay. Thanks, Tara, for joining us. I think I have to, okay, there we go. Okay, I got your text message. You were saying if we could survive the Iowa caucus, we could survive this moment. So that definitely made me laugh. Can you hear me? Oh, wait, you're still, I can't hear you on my end. Just 1 second.
Oh, yeah. Got it? Okay. How about my dog? Do you hear my dog too?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. What is happening, Robin? What is happening?
It's one of those days.
He's so quiet all the time because I work from home. It's going crazy right now.
I know, same.
It's fine. It's fine.
Thank you for your patience. I really appreciate it.
Oh, it's great. You know, it's like, have you ever seen that joke about how Zoom is like a seance, like a modern seance? Yeah, are you there? Can you hear us?
That's what it feels like. That is what it feels like. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. I was so excited for this.
Yeah, me too. Well, I'm glad that we worked it out.
Yes. So
Our
let's see where to begin. So I just like to start because you know, it's called Grassroots Voices with Robin and Friends. And I met Tara just on the campaign trail back in 2020. And we would, you know, it was kind of like we had like our kind of Team Stacy Georgia group, and you were part of a Beto O'Rourke group, and we both were out there supporting various presidential candidates. And then we both, you know, landed with Biden early on when people thought we were all crazy. And so we would see each other in South Carolina and Iowa. And I just always loved the energy between the Team Stacy and Team Beto people from the two southern battleground states. And we were just so fired up and just ready to do everything that we could, you know, to get rid of Trump and to, you know, get Biden in office. And so that's how we ended up crossing paths. So I just wanted to kind of give people a little bit of a context as why some of the guests are on today.
Oh, it was such a great experience. You know, people thought we were crazy. We were out there sliding through the snow and the ice. It was an insane, completely insane campaign season,
Yeah.
but fun, you know. I really believe that like we crossed paths for a reason. You know, I've learned so much from you, and you are constantly doing the work, and it's just absolutely incredible. You and all of Team Georgia, you guys were amazing.
Oh, no, thank you. Thank you. And I mean, you are always someone that I could like lean on and reach out to and text, and, you know, because those campaigns are such roller coasters and they just get more and more crazy, you know, as the time leads up, but you are always there to provide insight. And I just extremely appreciate it because it was rough, especially on top with the pandemic happening too.
Oh my gosh, we had to learn everything all over again, right? Because it was like everything that we had done as organizers, we couldn't knock doors, you know. And I don't think, if I remember correctly, for most of the campaign, we weren't even doing lit drops. I think toward the end we did.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had to reinvent the wheel. And I think we were pretty successful at doing that, honestly. Like stuff like this, like what you're doing right now, really feels like it was empowered by the pandemic in this weird way. And so, you know, like just the innovation that came out of it is such a beautiful part of working with folks like you who are organizers, who are in the space, that are like, okay, it still has to get done. So what do we do? You know? Yeah.
And I appreciate you all came all the way from various parts of the country to knock doors in Georgia during the Senate runoffs. And then that was like that was one of my first presidential campaigns where I was like in my own little boiler room. Usually I would be out, you know, on the ground and running around. So, but it was cool because I was doing everything from my computer for the Ossoff campaign and from my house. But then I would, you know, catch the photos and videos and various things happening on the trail. So thank you so much for coming out and helping us get out the vote in Georgia. That was huge. Clutch. Yeah.
Fantastic. I mean, I ended up not being able to do it, but I remember, you know, I knew so many people who made that trip, and you were actually, if I remember correctly, you connected me with the Warnock campaign before it was like a thing, when it was still like, he was, I want to say was it 27 people on the ballot?
Yeah, there were so many.
Yeah, just trying to get people to know that his name was on the second page. And we ended up texting for him kind of before that whole thing had happened, just in that runoff. And yeah, I mean, just like getting in there and doing the work early has been super consistent in my experience of you. And that's really a lot of what, you know, not to like leave that behind, but a lot of what Powered by People was about is like, what does it look like to get in there and do the work before there's a campaign necessarily? You know, like when Beto started Powered by People, is it okay if I start talking about that?
Yeah, let's jump in.
So when Beto started Powered by People, this is just my opinion, it's not insider info or anything. I don't think that he had a specific campaign in mind for himself. I think he was just like, what has to be done? Okay. And, we could all look at Georgia and what Stacey Abrams had been doing for quite some time. My impression of that work is that she had been doing that for quite some time before her gubernatorial campaign. And, I think that he sort of saw that as the path forward, to register voters and just, start to do the hard work of registering voters. Because as you know, it's a grind. Like you set up your table, you sit out there all day and you hope for the best, and sometimes you have great days. And sometimes it's a trickle, just one or two folks.
On the website, there's 3 million eligible but unregistered voters in Texas. When I heard that, I just couldn't even, but I mean, I know there's so many people who, could vote, but they don't, or they're not registered for whatever reason. So it's like, I always think like there's always more people to bring into the process. So, but that number was shocking, to me, but is very promising because then, like you're saying, like there's a lot of work to be done, at the same time too.
Absolutely. So kind of a strange, can you hear me okay? Is the dog drowning me? We're just gonna, you know what? It is what it is.
So,
it's kind of a interesting thing. Like I live in North Carolina, so I'm an out-of-state ambassador. And so I'm not actually doing the work of sitting down at the table. For us, it's a lot about, there's 2 branches for out-of-state folks. There's the direct support of the folks who are doing the events. So those folks are really providing support to the captains in Texas. So let's say they have an event and that person might do some of the phone work for them, like help them call folks, help them get, event space set up. There's a lot of sort of logistical stuff that they can support with out of state. And then there's what I was doing, which is really more the comms side, which is like, also totally grassroots, like the creation of graphics, just like spreading event stuff. I'm sort of wondering if I should just go see what he's doing.
Oh yeah, you should let him out. That is so. Oh, he's right there. Zoom, guys, in real life. Oh my gosh, so cute. Wait, you're muted. You're muted.
Okay, so he literally never does this. He's our special guest. He's having one of those days. I don't know what. But anyway, so yeah, so comms helps out with graphics. They help out with event publicity. They do like the tweets. They do live stream of Beto's events. A lot of those like live tweeting. What else do we do? It feels like, oh, there's a newsletter. We do interviews with the captains and kind of spread that stuff around. The newsletter itself is a lot of work. So we take turns on that. Because everyone is a volunteer, so everyone is just spending their time.
Oh my God, the little fur babies.
Why are we just like, we're under a strange star.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
It's unbelievable. So anyway, that's sort of an overview of the work that we do. And yeah, do you have any questions right offhand?
Well, I think it's great that they have an out-of-state component to support people who are on the ground, because it really is like a collective, especially these days where, things feel like it's just a state specific race, but it can have national impacts in various ways. And I think we've talked about this, about how, when you have certain leaders in the South and you're living under these oppressive Republican regimes and voter suppression laws and, partisan gerrymandering and, things like that, it's difficult for leaders who are from the South to then be able to, expand out nationally, because it's difficult for them to win some of these federal seats. But so that's why, again, it's important to support various states in the work they're doing on the ground, even if it's at like a state or local level, because that directly impacts, the future of that state and those candidates to be able to take on, federal office. So anyway, I'm glad they have that out of state component for people who do want to support Texas. So maybe just talk about a little bit about, there's been like a lot of outstanding numbers as far as voter registration. And what are you kind of hearing or seeing about what's happening on the ground as far as the voter registration numbers in Texas?
Yeah, so just massive amounts of folks have been registered recently. Mm-hmm. I'm not entirely sure what percentage of that is powered by people versus, the whole universe. Mm-hmm. I know that it has been incredible to watch these folks in Texas who every weekend go schlep out to a farmer's market, a high school, a college campus, and set up their table and just do the best that they can to get folks processed through. And there's so much innovation that comes out of just interacting with folks, so then the captains get back together and they say, hey, this is what worked really well for me. This is what didn't work. I'm having a problem with this. And they're able to sort of mentor each other, support each other, share best practices. And in this way, it's like this incredible feedback loop of inspiration and encouragement, it becomes a community. And when I know for sure, when I did the newsletter, I got to interview 3 women that always work together. They're like best friends, and they go out once a week and they'll walk in a park and sort of try to pick like, what's the best place for a table on the weekend? Mm-hmm. And just, it's not glamorous and it takes a lot of time, but they're so dedicated and they do it together and they make it fun. And so I'm not surprised that we're seeing the numbers that we're seeing, just because it's like that constant filling of like drip, 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 drip into the bucket. And that adds up over time for sure. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I know during the Obama campaign in 2008, when I worked in Florida, I would stand in this Walmart parking lot in Fort Lauderdale. I don't know if you could still do it, to this day, but I would just I would stand in the middle of the parking lot from about, I would say like 10, 11 a.m. to like 6, 7 p.m. And this definitely during that last, I would say month and a half before the voter registration deadline. And it took time. I might get like a few registrations here and there. But then people sometimes would see me, like maybe they saw me the first 2 weeks and then they came back, the last week, and then they finally were willing to allow me to register them to vote. And, because sometimes they had that distrust about sharing information, but over time, I would come in and it might be 10 here, 7 there, the next day 20, but they added up. I mean, over that time, it was definitely hundreds of voters just out of that Walmart parking lot. So it definitely, is like you were saying, it's really a grind, day to day. And have you been hearing like feedback from people that you all have been registering or that they've been registering as far as like, are people feeling more empowered to vote this time around, or did they just need extra support, or what are you hearing on the ground?
I think so. The feedback that I've heard, I haven't heard directly from the folks that are being registered because I am in the support position. But what I've heard from those folks who have been doing the registering is that, the driving, so Powered by People created a drive to your house to register you program. Oh, that's been helpful for folks that have difficulty getting around or maybe don't have transportation right at hand. Because like a lot of southern cities, the public transport is not necessarily robust. Yeah. There are some southern cities that have great public transport, but most of them don't. If you were in Charlotte, for instance, where I live, it's minimal. And so a program like that is helpful. It seems like too, there's a lot with folks who move. They move in state, and then if the process is not seamless, as indeed in a lot of these southern states, the process is opaque for how to switch your registration or how to, make that happen easily. that kind of focus on those folks has been helpful as well.
Mhm. And then as far as the voter suppression laws, how are people, the captains and people responding? Is that driving people to want to register to vote, or is it turning people off, or how are the captains feeling about this?
I have not heard, that's a great question. I haven't actually heard the captains talk a whole lot about that specifically. I mean, they're in the field of registering voters for a reason. So like, ideologically, they're completely against voter suppression laws. But because, I don't know if this is a Texas thing or if it's an activist thing for the folks that do this kind of grinding work, there's not a whole lot of talk about the obstacles or the odds, like it's one of those things where people are aware of it. It's not rose-colored glasses, but it's also, there's just that sort of, what's the word that I'm looking for? There's just that sort of attitude of like, yeah, it's tough work and we're going to do it anyway because the work is its own reward.
Yeah.
So I think, you might be familiar with this from your work in Georgia too, but there's that sense of everything that happens is adding rungs to that ladder.
Mm-hmm.
And that whether or not it's Beto or whoever who eventually gets over the wall, is almost secondary to the fact that the ladder just has to be built. And someday somebody is going to get over it, and hopefully sooner rather than later.
Exactly. No, they've been putting so much work, into Georgia, for years. I mean, I remember, I've been well, I'm not there now, but I've lived in Georgia for about 8 years. And then maybe just in the last, I want to say like 6 years, 5 to 6 years, I started to become more politically active in Georgia. But I remember before, it was in 2008, actually, I just remember there was like kind of the way I came into the Obama campaign was at the Chicago headquarters, and I was what was called a desk for Georgia, and I would help people set up these phone banks. But even then, I was surprised that there was so much movement and things happening in Georgia. And there was a time where I think the Obama campaign was going to make a go for Georgia, but then kind of towards the end, they determined that they weren't going to do it, and they actually sent some of their staff from Georgia into Florida. But even back then, you could sense that something was changing there. So yeah, they've definitely been doing so much work for years there. But what I was going to say too is the power of voter registrations, because that is how campaigns, if you're doing it right, they can know if they have a shot at a place based on the numbers, of the Democrats or just people who voted for them last time. And then, if they're doing an aggressive voter registration campaign, then they can set those goals. And that's pretty much how, like, in Florida, at least with the Obama campaign, there was a time where they looked at the numbers, and I don't know if they were just trying to scare us or if this was true, but I think there was some truth to it. And maybe the numbers weren't where they needed to be with voter registration. And there were rumors that they were going to pull the Florida staff out and send us to Virginia. But we had like 1 more month left of voter registration, and we just had to like hit it. We all also almost had to like put things aside, other organizing things aside to just focus on those voter registrations. So I do feel like that is the way to go. And like you were saying, if it's not in 2022, it'll be 2024, but it's coming. Like this flip is coming, So I'm so excited, because I really feel like each race and each year, it just brings, Texas a little bit closer. So as far as like some of the events, I've seen that like a block walk for Beto and letter writing campaigns. So what are, I guess, some other events that you all are doing through Powered by the People in addition to the voter registration?
Well, it's interesting because I think it's going to change a lot now that it has to be separate from the campaign. There's going to have to be like sort of that firewall in between the voter registration side of things and then the activities that they're doing for Beto. So I think we're in this moment of flux. What has happened before is there's always there's like a contingent of Beto world that loves doing like arts and crafts. And those folks love to put like QR codes on stuff, whether it's a t-shirt, whether it's a poster, whether there's like rock painting parties, where they get QR codes on the rocks. Like those folks love that stuff. And then they like just hide them somewhere and people find them and you can, scan your rock or whatever. So, that is almost more important for the community building than maybe the net effect of how many people scan the QR code. Who knows? But, it provides that family sense, that sense of like, these are folks that we can work with. And those little kind of baby steps lead up to doing the big stuff like phone banking and door knocking. Trying to think of what other events have happened. The big thing, really honestly, one of the biggest pieces of feedback for like the place to register voters has been high schools for the seniors that are eligible and college campuses. The college campuses are like bonanza. That's where we really get the biggest numbers of folks that are registered in a day. It's the youth vote, genuinely the youth vote.
That's exciting. And I know that, yeah, there's definitely a very young voting bloc and young, voters of color, in Texas. So that's exciting that they're still staying active. Are you hearing anything just in regards as far as are they going to be bringing in more captains, do you think? Or do you think the organization's going to continue to grow with his now announcement, or do you think that they're just kind of going to stick with the group that they have, or how can people get involved?
It's a great question, and we haven't gotten a lot of direction yet. I know that they're separating the two workspaces for obvious reasons. My suspicion, and this is totally just me speaking off my gut instinct, not from the campaign, or from Powered by People rather, my suspicion is that the people who have been doing voter registration will continue doing voter registration because they're in that rhythm. They're, they've got their practices, they've got it down, and it's important, right? So like the importance of it doesn't change. Now, if anything, there's like even more of a sort of like concrete goal off to the side that we can keep in our peripheral vision. And as far as more captains, yes, more captains are always needed. If you're out of state, there's so much stuff, there's so many things that we can put you to work doing. So it's 100% worth going to the website, which is just poweredbypeople.org, and signing up. And, we'll find something for you to do and it'll be fun. It's a really good time, I have to say. It is.
Yes, I definitely feel like all the Beto people I meet are a good time.
It's true. We cut up. Yeah.
That's great. No, that's great. Okay. And then, so as far as you and just your interests, like, because I know you're in North Carolina, and what brought you into Beto world, and what brought you into Powered by People, or do you have like an investment in Texas, or what's driving and inspiring you to be so involved?
Oh my gosh, it's such a great question. So, what brought me into Beto world was I was one of the few people who did not pay a whole ton of attention to the Senate campaign. I was in Arizona at the time. And then right before that election, I moved to North Carolina. And Arizona had its own thing going on that was pretty intense with the Cinema McSally race. And then there was, then when we moved here, I was just like, oh, I gotta get registered so I can vote. And I didn't pay a ton of attention to that race. I didn't find Beto until the presidential run. And then what really brought me in and kept me in was that a wonderful woman named Brenda Juergens took me under her wing and taught me everything that she knew about organizing. And, there was definitely an ethos of, if you're going to be a Beto, the voter supporter, then you got to work. So that's like the beautiful thing about being part of this, is that they'll teach you what to do and they'll empower you. And I discovered that like I was actually not bad at it, and I enjoyed it. And I ended up sort of, that when you try to do the work to transform systems, it ends up transforming you.
Yes.
And I remember all of a sudden, like teaching other people how to do things that I had only recently learned how to do myself, like Canvas and Phone Bank. And they would always say, oh my God, I'm so scared. I don't think I can do it. And I was like, it's fine. You do it scared, and by the end you won't be. And it was wonderful to watch that transformation of starting your first minivan list and people just being like, no, I can't knock on the door. I'm not going to do it. And then by the end, they're like, oh, should I go do this last block? It's like, yeah, go, because people realize that they have so much more within them than they realized. And that part I really loved. And so that really kept me with Beto. And I just thought, whatever he wants to do, I'm going to support him. These are my people. These are the people that are very similar, I think, to Stacey Abrams, like the people who are just like, what needs to be done? Let's do it. And it's not going to be glamorous, but it's going to be rewarding. And we're going to, bit by bit, we're going to change things, and it's going to change us. And we're going to be in this like really symbiotic process together. And what and I think what we know is that people often say like, oh, don't give your money to that race. That's not winnable. It's not a good return on your investment. And it's actually the exact opposite. People become Democratic voters when Democratic organizers show up first. And so if you want to win those races, you have to show up. And that's what it's all about, right? It's like being there, doing what you did in Fort Lauderdale, a Fort Lauderdale Walmart. Like, this is a reality show. They're just showing up there week after week until they're like, you know what, maybe this woman is for real.
Yeah, it's so true. I always tell people that they should try to hop on, campaigns in different capacities, whether you're volunteering or working, and whether it's a presidential or local race, because you learn so much about people and about community building. And, I used to love some of the organizing I've done, like when you'll get a list and then you're calling someone and maybe they're kind of on the fence, and if you're calling and targeting, sometimes you might end up talking to this person again. And then maybe they move to a supporter. And then, over time, next, they're coming into the office to volunteer. And then from there, they're volunteering. And then some of those people end up being neighborhood leaders or, team leaders or captains. And then they're running their own teams and operations by the time election day or GOTV, get out the vote, rolls around. And I just think, especially if there's a campaign and a candidate that prioritizes that respect, empower, and include model, it just goes such a long way. And it's so important to empower people and not just, show up and say, don't vote for this person, they're horrible, go with our guy or woman or whatever. And then, like you said, they don't see you anymore. And then you're not leaving them with tools to organize themselves and their own communities. So when I see people like Stacey Abrams and then Beto O'Rourke, and there's so many others out there, they're so special, because not every campaign or not every candidate, takes the time to build community in that way.
Yeah, it's so true. Like, what if we as citizens regarded voting as the floor? Like, it's the least you can do. Like, and there's going to be times in your life where that's all you can do, because that's just how life goes, and that's fine. But when you have the capacity to do more, like really diving into that and, becoming the party that we want to be, like, it's us, it's us. And when we create what we want, when we create the culture that we want, respect, empower, include, like you just said, then that has a seismic effect. So love everything that you're saying.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And and that's why I wanted to do this show, because, a lot of times, like, there's so many issues that are they're huge and they're complex. And then, people sometimes will feel paralyzed. They want to do more, but they don't know what, or they think they have to do something that's like so outside, their comfort zone. And sometimes you do if you're open to that, but sometimes it's just a little bit of support that you can give that goes such a long way. And that's why I wanted to, have this show, so I can, elevate and highlight people like you and Powered by the People, because you all are doing this work every day on your own. In addition to your own personal lives, you're carving out this time in order to, start laying that groundwork and to create that change. So It's so appreciative of from me and from everybody else with our Team Stacy group. And so anything you want to leave us with as far as like any upcoming calls to action or just like ways for people to get involved?
You know, I would say check out the website, sign up, and just, I think part of it is just the knowing that whatever happens, Powered by People is going to be there to do what needs to be done. You know, if it's a food bank line, we're going to be calling to get volunteers to staff the food bank line. If power goes out because the grid is mismanaged, we're going to be the ones that are phone banking to get relief to people. You know, this is all stuff that Powered by People has done. You know, we've done the voter registration, but it's also like when things really go down in people's lives, you know, we're the people that are like, hey, let's step up and do something about it, because it is an empowered place to be. It is a place where if you show up and have your hand up, people will take you up on it. And so if someone is looking for that in their life, or if they just want to go like 1% past their comfort zone, it's a great place to start because there's so much mentorship and so much support. And, you know, we'll teach you, we'll empower you. And before you know it, you know, you'll be doing stuff like this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, President Obama tells this story about, I think it was South Carolina. There was a young woman who was an organizer and she would have these little get-togethers. And I think, you know, she had a small get-together, like 10 people or something. And I guess she had shared her story about healthcare, and it was like a sad story where like her mom couldn't afford, you know, to feed them a certain meal or breakfast or something because she had all these high medical bills because she had breast cancer, I believe. And so this girl the organizer was telling the story about how she'd have to eat some kind of like mustard and bread, or it was like some kind of sandwich she'd have to eat, I guess, every morning. And she just did it because she knew her mom couldn't afford it. So anyway, they were going around the circle and they were asking each person, okay, why are you here? You know, because a lot of times people think people show up because of the candidate, you know, and so they were going around the room, and I think the organizer was like a young white woman, and they were going around the room, and it was an older Black man, and they said, why are you here? And he said, oh, I'm here because of her, like the organizer. And so President Obama always would tell that story, you know, back when he was running, because you're really, you know, you're really not only, you maybe you show up the first time because of the candidate or because of the cause, but a lot of times people come back because of people like you know what I mean? And people who are there volunteering and people who are showing up to do the work. That's what really draws people back in to campaigns and to various causes. So I just know, like, you know, I love Beto and everything, but like you and Scott and Kari and Kristen and Brittany and Christine, am I missing anybody? All of you are the ones who really just kept like bringing, you know, Todd, you know, bringing me back into the Beto family. And I just really, you know, just really admired the work that you all were doing all this time. And so I know it's like you all are like unsung heroes, and you don't always get to see the faces and the people behind all of this, but you all really are really fabulous people, and you've built like a really very tight-knit, loving community from your Beto family. So I really appreciate you all accepting all of us and just always being there whenever we all need anything in Georgia.
Thank you so much for saying that and for being who you are, because I know that I think I can speak for everyone, certainly for me. If I hear that you're on board with something, that's all I need to hear. You know? And I'm like, all right, if Robin's doing it, it's good. You know, like let's go, let's show up and support you, because it does feel like I said, my experience of you consistently is that you are there doing the work before it's popular, before it's glamorous, early on. And like, that is exactly the kind of person that needs to be elevated and lifted and empowered and celebrated. You know, so to even have the opportunity to just sit down and like chat with you, like, I don't know who's watching, I don't care, it's fine. Like like all of that is beautiful, like whoever it is, hi. But you know, it's just like the opportunity just to like learn from you and be with you has been absolutely fantastic. I appreciate you so much.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate you too. And happy birthday. I know you just had
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was like a couple of days ago, but I'm milking it, you know.
Yeah, you should get the complete Scorpio season at least.
Yes, bring on the transformation. Yeah.
Right. Oh my goodness. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. And of course, you're gonna have to come back and, tell us what's going on, in 2022. And I'm so excited. I'm so glad that he's just gone ahead and announced, and we don't have to wonder. And we're still wondering what's gonna happen in Georgia, but we have until I think March to hear if Stacey is going to announce or not. But I'm glad Beto is out there, and I hope I can hopefully get to Texas sometime in 2022 to help out. But if not, definitely will help from a distance. So I definitely donate to Powered by the People every month, and we'll continue to step it up, even more. So again, so thanks for taking the time and just being patient and coming on here to share.
Of course. Thank you so much. We should road trip down to Texas together.
Oh, I know.
It's so great. Robin on the road.
Yes, that would be really fun. Absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah, and I'm counting on Stacey running, and I'm already like planning to come down and support you somehow on doors, whatever. So.
Oh yes, absolutely. There'll be plenty of door knocking to go around the Sun Belt next year.
Oh my goodness, so true, so true. But I feel lucky. I really do.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you, Tara. So have a wonderful evening. And again, I'll definitely be in touch, just in general, but I'll also be in touch to have you all come back on in 2022.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Robin.
You're welcome. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye. That's what I love about campaigns, is that you get to meet so many really amazing people across the country along the way. Excuse me. And it gives you an opportunity to make new friends and to come back together, put the band back together when a new campaign is, on the horizon. So again, Texas, we're pulling for you. I know Texas have pulled for Georgia as well. And, Arizona, North Carolina, Florida, all those Sun Belt states, we have to continue to support one another and to share ideas and be there for one another and mentor each other in order to continue to create change and progress. So again, thank you to Powered by the People, all the out-of-state ambassadors, in-state ambassadors. Thank you, Tara. And we look forward to hearing more from Team Beto and Powered by the People later on next year. All right. So next week, I'm excited because we'll be joined by, I'm sorry, not next week, Thursday, actually, it's this week. Okay, I'm all over the place here. November 18th, this Thursday at 6 p.m. Is the next show, episode 16. I'll be joined by Dominic Perkins. He's the political director of the Democratic Party of Georgia. So he's going to give us an update about what's happening in Georgia. Little do people know, on election day, just a couple of weeks ago in Georgia, there were so many seats that flipped. That news was overshadowed by Virginia and some other races, but there were actually a lot of gains made here in Georgia. So we're going to speak with Dominic, see what he thinks about redistricting and how that might impact the vote, as well as these voter suppression laws that are here. But we're going to continue to fight here in Georgia and across the country until we can get voting rights. Well, not until, we're going to continue to fight even after voting rights is passed. But we'll hear from Dominic, and he'll just give us an update about what's happening here in Georgia. Also, you can still catch Stacey Abrams in a few cities. You go to StaceyAbramsTour.com. She's been traveling across the country. I had a chance to meet her and see her in Jacksonville, Florida last week. We will recap that whole trip and event in a later episode. But in the meantime, go to StaceyAbramsTour.com and you can meet Stacey and hear her speak. All right, on November 30th, episode 17, we will be joined by a very special guest, Bee Nguyen, candidate for Secretary of State for Georgia. As you know, the Secretary of State office is so important, especially here in Georgia, where Republicans are trying to overtake and overthrow election results and take control of the electoral process and how it's being administered. So it's going to be extremely important that we get Bee Nguyen into the Secretary of State seat. And she will be joining us on Tuesday, November 30th at 6 p.m. So if you have specific questions for her or just questions in general regarding Georgia, please let us know. And yeah, I'm looking forward to sitting down and speaking with a candidate. We're still calling for Freedom to Vote Fall. We're still calling our senators every week. I get texts from Fair Fight all the time, every day, encouraging me to call my senators. It doesn't matter if you're in a blue or red state. It doesn't matter if they're Democrat or Republican, or if they support the bill or don't support the bill. This is about you calling as a constituent to let your voice be heard and exercising your power and making sure that we get federal voting rights legislation passed this year, or as soon as we can get it passed. Hopefully with the passing of the infrastructure bill, hopefully we'll start to see some movement on voting rights. So that number is 833-465-7142, 833-465-7142. We're also calling President Biden and leaving a comment on the White House comment line. That number is 888-724-8746. We're encouraging the president to pressure the Senate to end and eliminate the filibuster, or at the very least to carve out some exceptions, in regards to voting rights. So President Biden has taken a turn as far as where he was, earlier, and now he is talking about doing things to support eliminating the filibuster, or again, carving out an exception. Also, there has been a change even from Senator Tom Carper. He is one of President Biden's really good friends. He's a senator in the state of Delaware, and he wrote an op-ed piece saying that we need to get rid of the filibuster that the Senate does. So these calls matter. They are listening. We have to keep the political power and the will on them, keep the pressure up, especially in the streets, and let your elected officials know where you stand on these issues. They are listening, and that emboldens them to make these calls and to make change so we can see some progress. But of course, the infrastructure bill, that was huge. We're also continuing to call Brian Kemp, asking him to expand Medicaid. That number is 404-656-1776. So again, please support that. I'm going to play a quick video to just kind of illustrate what we're dealing with here in Georgia around the expansion of Medicaid.
The kids coming in here are so sick. And the families, they're so stressed.
Their COVID bills are piling up, and the families can't get covered by Medicaid.
They need help.
We need help.
But Brian Kemp
won't
take the free federal money available to Georgia.
Is he playing politics with people's lives?
Or does he just not care?
Paid for by Fair Fight Action.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both. I think he does not care, and I think he's also playing politics. So this is a video that Stacey Abrams and the Lawrence O'Donnell Show put out on Twitter a couple of weeks ago, and she talks a little bit more about why it's so important to expand Medicaid here in Georgia.
We know that medical debt affects 1 in 5 Americans. 1 in 5 Americans has unpaid medical debt. $140 billion is on the books. And that's why Fair Fight is so proud of the work we were able to announce today. We understand that medical debt is not just a drag on the economy, it is a drag on the future. These are communities of color. These are Southerners. These are parents with children who can't get loans, who face personal bankruptcy, as you noted. And so together with RIP Medical Debt, we were able to buy that debt. $1.3 million went in and $212 million came off the table. And that's just the beginning. Indiana expanded Medicaid. Mike Pence expanded Medicaid. And yet Brian Kemp is refusing to do so for reasons that pass understanding other than just basic meanness. We know that Georgia is one of those states, like so many Southern states, that are losing rural hospitals. You're 4.5 times more likely to have a rural hospital close if you haven't expanded Medicaid. And Georgia had 2 hospitals facing closure during the pandemic. We just bought the medical debt of 68,000 Georgians. 68,000 people. We were able to buy their medical debt, and that's just scratching the surface. And that is because he has refused to accept money that Georgians have already paid into the system. Medicaid expansion has been around now for almost a decade. And the reality is that we have leaders who know that their people, their citizens are spending money, paying into a system that they cannot benefit from. And in the midst of a pandemic where you have a disproportionate share of people of color, rural communities, and poor people who are suffering, it is callous and it is inexplicable that Brian Kemp and his fellow Republican governors across these states refuse to do right by their people.
I mean, it's unbelievable. This medical debt is not a Democrat Republican thing or, anything like that. It's really sad. It's heartbreaking. And I just really highly encourage people to go to fairfight.com/medical debt and get more information on this. I do know people who were personally impacted by having some of their medical debt paid off. And it was a huge relief for them. And a lot of them didn't even realize that Fair Fight was a part of this, but, it's just amazing what people can do when they actually care and they, put their minds to it. All right. So again, call Brian Kemp, let him know he needs to expand Medicaid and stop being such a cruel-hearted person. All right. If you have any comments, show ideas, guest suggestions, you can email me at grassrootsvoices999@gmail.com. I will do my best to get back to everybody. Thank you for those people who have reached out with some guest suggestions. Also, again, if you want to support the show, I'm always willing to take a grassroots donation and say thank you. I'm willing to receive that, but it's not the only way that you can support. Just like and share this episode, tag a friend in the comments, join our groups, and keep fighting for voting rights. So before we end, I'm going to play a few videos from people who are being impacted by the current voting laws in their state. And this is why sharing your voting story is so important. So it doesn't matter where you are in the country. It doesn't have to be like a real egregious situation or issue that occurred. It's important that you share your voting story because these stories can be used in future litigation to put a name and a face to voter suppression.
In New Hampshire, voter suppression is mainly targeted at students. Of course, over the past few years, from the 2018 to 2020 sessions in the State House, there have been bills that have been pushed through or attempted to be pushed through that would change how students could vote, mostly affecting the definition of domicile, meaning that dorms would no longer be applicable on their registration forms. This, of course, is completely absurd since students live in New Hampshire for 3/4 of the year and is essentially stripping somebody who is a resident of their right to vote. It's important for me that these laws aren't passed because New Hampshire, and especially the university system, it's a community there, and these people are part of that community and they deserve to have their rights. It shouldn't be something that should be stripped away from them. But that's exactly what the state legislature is trying to do.
So did you guys hear that? They're in college 3/4 of the time in the state, but they can't put their dorms as their residence, which is crazy. What are they supposed to write as their residence? It just doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense that we have different voting laws depending on which state you're in, and especially for these federal elections. Okay, here's another story that was very touching. These are all coming from Fair Fight.
I am an Army veteran, served as a combat military police officer from 2001 to 2010. I have PTSD, service connected. I suffer from severe social anxieties, paranoia, hypervigilance. During election day, there is no place for me to safely and comfortably be able to vote without being triggered with my mental health issues that I incurred from during my service in the United States Army. So I depend on early voting and absentee ballots. Standing in large crowds, standing in long lines is not an option for me, as well not an option for many veterans like me. Without it, I would not be able to vote. I served my country honorably for almost 10 years. When I took that oath to protect the rights of the Constitution, to protect the rights of these people that live in this country, I took that oath very seriously. It is my constitutional right to be able to vote. That is what I served for. My father, being from the Delta of Mississippi, was born in an era where people that look like me was unable to vote. I was raised in a household where that's what we did, we voted. And when I took that oath to defend that right, how dare we be denied it? I gave everything for my country just for this. And now we're being stopped. There are many veterans, they'll say, well, we have ADA protections for people with disabilities. And I would say to that, but what about the veterans that didn't know how to put in a disability claim through the VA, who didn't have the help, or for whatever reason were denied, but yet they still have problems? For veterans to be able to have the access that we deserve, there are significant changes that need to be made. We need access to mail-in ballots. We need to be able to early vote, so that way we can go and feel that we are in a safe place, that we don't have to worry about standing in long lines and being in large crowds for hours waiting for our turn. When I signed up, there was no lines for me to get into the Army. So why should I and my fellow brothers and sisters in arms have to stand in long lines to cast a ballot?
So again, these are people, real stories, real experiences. So if you don't call for yourself or call for people who, marched and died for your right to vote, please call your member of Congress and call for these people like Lakeisha and what was the other young man's name? Heath, Lakeisha and Heath. Call for them. Again, that number is 833-465-7142. Check the comments section. I think I've gone through all of my videos. Yeah, I actually have. Oh, I do have one more. Okay, one more video. This video was from not Powered by the People, sorry, Glamour honored women who are making a difference, and they honored Latasha Brown of Black Voters Matter, and that was really cool, as well as I believe other women in Georgia in say UFOT. So I want to see if I can find that video real quick to share with all of you. And if I can't find it now, then I'm just going to have to play it next time. Let's see, one more place. Yeah, I may have to find it next. I think it was on Twitter. Sorry, guys. I know I pub that and then now I'm not showing you all, but I will find that video and play it next time. All right, so again, thank you everybody for joining. Thank you for dealing with all of my technical difficulties and issues today. I'll be back on Thursday to speak with Dominic Perkins. Again, he's the political director of the Democratic Party of Georgia, and we'll hear about all the gains that the Democrats made in Georgia across the state. In the local and municipal races, as well as what is to come for 2022. So I'm really excited to speak with him. I've been working so hard to try to book him for some time now, and he finally has a little bit of time with us. So again, that's November 18th, Thursday at 6 p.m. Eastern. And again, thank you for joining. Check out the comments for all the calls to actions, all the groups, everything is in there. And I will catch up with everybody in the next few days. So again, I'm Robin, and this is Grassroots Voices with Robin and Friends, where community and politics meet. Thank you for stopping by, and we will talk again soon. Take care.